طيب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. So we started the book of purification, Kitab al-Tahara, last week. We said the word kitab comes from which word? Meaning the root word of kitab is what? Huh? Yeah, what is the root word in Arabic? Kataba, which means, what is it? Kataba. One of the meanings is to be written upon you, mean like prescribed upon you, furida or farada. The other is, the original meaning we said? Yes, to join. So kataba initially also means to join. So we join letters together to make words, words together to make sentences, sentences together to make paragraphs, paragraphs together to make chapters, chapters together to make a book, right? So kitab is a chapter or a book containing several chapters. We said usually refers to something that's bigger than just a small, section. It contains lots of information in it, so they call it kitab. The word katiba, the platoon, because they gather together certain men to make a group of people, right? Kataba. So in this sense, kitab, we said, refers to a book that contains much information. So the fuqaha just divided like major subjects into books. So we're starting off with the book of Tahara. We said Tahara can be three types of Tahara. What are they? Physical purification, spiritual purification, and that's physical. Yeah. So what's an example of ritual? Yes. So ritual purification, like wudu, ghusl, tayammum, right? Physical purification, like removing filth or dirt. And then spiritual purification, like cleansing our hearts from the ailments or the sicknesses of the heart. So kitab al-tahara. And then we started off with the types of water, right? We said there's three types of water. The first one is al-ma' al-mutlaq or al-ma' al-tuhur, right? Tuhur is pure in of itself, something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created ala asla khilqatihi, as the Imam says, right? In its original form. So rainwater, ocean water, river water, creeks, streams, etc. Anything that's occurring and naturally occurring, right? Ma tuhur, right? It's pure in of itself, and you can use it for purification purposes. Right? The next one, used water, or we can say tahir. Tahir is pure, in itself, but it's not purifying for others, right? So when the water is changed into something other than its original creation, if it changes color or its taste or its scent, it becomes tahur, right? It's still pure, that you can use it for drinking or you can use it for like refreshing or something like that, but you can't use it in ritual purification, and you can't use it to remove a physical impurity, right? And then the third category is ma najis. Yes, the impure water or impure substance, right? You can't use it, for any purposes, personal or purification purposes. Right? And then we said if the water reaches qullatan lam yunajjishu shay'an, right? If the water is reaching qullatan, we said how much is it roughly in our terminology? 50 gallons, 191 liters. If it reaches that level, then nothing can impurify it, and nothing can cause it to be impure, right? But there's a caveat to that. What's the caveat? It has to be pure itself. It is pure itself. But what can change the purity of the water? What do we say? Yes. Yes, if it changes its color, its taste, or its smell from its original foundation, even though it might be a great amount, if it changes one of those three characteristics, then it becomes not able to, be used for purification purposes, right? So there's a caveat to that. Also, the running water is pure. It's okay. Any type of any type of water that's running, in general, it's pure, unless it's overcome by something where it changes completely. But what if the water is, if it's like a rainstorm and it becomes murky or muddy or brown? It changes color, right? So we can't use it, or we can use it, right? Because why? It's originally created like that. Jade, mashallah. So if it's less than qullatan, according to the madhab, or the method we're studying right now, and a najasa falls into it, what happens? Can we use it or not? According to the Hanabila, the major opinion of the Hanabila, it becomes impure because the hadith إِذَا بَلَغَ الْمَاءُ قُلَّتان لَمْ يُنَجِّسْهُ شَيْئًا. So if the water reaches qullatan, like 50 gallons, nothing can make it impure. So the scholars, this Imam, rahimahullah ta'ala, he derives from that. If it's less than qullatan, then it can be made impure, right? So if the najasa falls into it and it's less than qullatan, it becomes impure. According to the other scholars, the other opinion, even in the madhab Hanabila, sometimes if the water doesn't change its color, its taste, or its smell, then it's still pure. You can still use it, right? It's a minor opinion in this madhab. So the major opinion in this madhab is if any najasa falls into a water that's less than qullatan, it becomes najas, you can't use it. Anything that changes, the water to the point where it's not called water anymore. For example, if you make coffee, tea, etc., that's not water. You can't make wudu with that anymore, right? It loses its meaning of ma. And then we said, according to Imam ibn Qudama, the used water, if it's used for purification purposes, then it becomes ma al-musta'mal, the water that's been used, and we're not supposed to use that for purification purposes. But we said some of the other madhab, and also in the madhab al-Hanbali, some of them say it's okay because the Prophet ﷺ made wudu or ghusl from the same pot as his wife Maymuna, right? And then now we got to this chapter, which is the doubts regarding purity. وإذا شك في طهارة الماء أو غيره ونجاسته بني على اليقين, or بنى على اليقين. So if you have doubts about the purity of the water, or something else, or about its impurity, you base your intention, or you base your actions upon certainty. What does that mean? So say you have a container of water and you know that it's pure, but you think some najasa might have got into it. In this case, what should you do according to this opinion? Yes. You consider it clean, right? Because the principle is الْيَقِينُ لَا يَزُولُ بِالشَّكِّ. Certainty is not removed with doubt. And this is applied in many, many aspects in our deen, right? You build upon what you're certain of. I'm making salat, I'm not sure if I did 3 or 4. So you build it upon what? So which number would that be? It would be 3, right? Because you're sure you did it 3 times. You're not sure about the 4th, so you build upon what you're sure of. I'm sure I made wudu. I'm not sure if I broke my wudu. What do you do? So you're sure, you woke up in the morning, you made wudu, and you're going out the day, and then you start, oh, wait a minute, did I break my wudu or not? You stay upon wudu, right?
But what if later on you realize, what if in that moment you had doubts, but then later on you have pure certainty that you're like, oh,
then you remove the doubts. When you have certainty, you remove doubts. Likewise, if you're certain you use the bathroom and you're not certain that you made wudu, you build upon certainty. So in this case, the water, you're certain it's clean, you're not certain that it's najis fell into it or anything like that, you build upon its original characteristic of cleanliness, right? It's pure, it's tahur, right? And this is emphasized by a hadith of Ammar radiallahu anhu. He was walking through the streets and he passed by some type of sewage thing that they used to throw the water off of the tops of the houses, and it could be mixed with impurities. And a person that was with him asked the owner of the house, is that water impure? Is it fi najasa? And Omar said, don't answer him, right? Why? Because you're going to put doubts into yourself. So just keep it as like the normal foundation of water is clean. Like, don't have to delve into it. Right? Likewise, the opposite. If you know something is najis for sure, you had some water, it got, some urine in it, for example, or blood or whatever, like you think that's mixed up, then you come back later and you're like, wait a minute, is it pure or not pure? But you remember there was najis in it. Khalas, it's najis. You don't use it. Right? So it's simple in the deen. Anything that you're certain of, you can build upon it. Anything that you have doubt upon, you build upon what is certain that to overcome the doubt. Yeah, if you're certain you broke your wudu, then you have to remake it. Yeah. Yeah, because you didn't make this salat correctly with tahara. Right? But usually it's only with like a certainty, not like waswas from the shaitan or doubts or like questioning or something like that. Yes, I mean. Like yourself. When you guys come closer, you have sickness or you're allergic to Yes. Yeah, so hopefully it wasn't too much before you realized. طيب. And then the Imam, he says, وَإِنْ خُفِيَ موضع النجاسة من الثوب أو غيره غسل ما يتيقن به غسلها. So if, there's some filthy spot upon your thobe, upon your garments, you should wash the parts that you are certain, or sufficiently enough that you are certain you removed the najasa. So, for example, something came upon your arm of najis, but you're not sure where on your arm it was. You wash the part that you think for certain it would cover the najasa part, right? So, like say it's something splashed on you, and then it dried up, and you're not sure where exactly it splashed, but it's on your arm. So you'd wash the garment, like the whole arm, basically. Same thing with the leg or something. If you're sure of the spot where it's at, you'd wash around that spot to make sure that you've covered it, basically. Right? And this is all for the things that is that not apparent. If it's apparent, then najasa is apparent, then you don't have that problem. You just wash exactly where you see it and you remove the filth. But if it's something that dried up and you can't really see where it is, that's when this comes into play. So you wash the amount that suffices, enough to cover the area that had najasa upon it. Right? Yes. Just water is sufficient, inshallah. Yeah. Except when it gets to the saliva of the dog, according to some of them. If it's in an ania, then that becomes another ruling. We'll get to that, inshallah. طيب. وإن اشتبه ماء طاهر بنجس ولم يجد غيره ماء تيمم وتركهما. And if you have two containers, like these are like, not most likely occurrences, but they are, rare occurrences. But the Imam mentions it to build your foundational knowledge. If these events were to happen or something like these events were to happen, you have like the tools to deal with it, right? So he's saying that if there's two containers, one is tahur and one is has najis in it, ma najis, and you're not sure which one is which, you leave them both and you make tayammum, right? If there's no other water available, obviously, like this is the only water that's available, you make tayammum, because you can't be sure which one is najis, and it's haram for us to like drink najis or put najis upon our bodies knowingly. And if in this case, even if you started with one then to the other, you still be having najasa upon your body knowingly, right? And so it's left because of the potential harm that's been done. Just like if you're a sick person and you use water, it's going to make you more sick or harm you, like an open wound or something like that. You can leave the water because of the harm that will be done physically, right? So you do tayammum in that case as a sick person or patient. Likewise, this can be done harm ritually because it's going to put najasa upon your body. So therefore, you leave it for that harm that might come upon you. And you do tayammum, so you have removing the doubt, and you know that you're purified for salat, inshallah. Yeah, that's yes, that's the showing the physical harm and why that tayammum was permissible. The companion, rahimahullah ta'ala, he had like a head wound, and he asked some companions about if he could make tayammum or not. They said no, you have to make ghusl because he had janaba. And then when he did the ghusl, it caused him to pass away, subhanallah, right? And the Prophet was very upset. He said, قاتلهم Allah. they caused him, his death. May Allah, cause their death, basically. Ella sa'alu, shouldn't they ask somebody if they did not know? You should never answer a question that you don't really have the answer to, right? If you don't know for sure, Allahu a'lam. Because literally, look at this case, it actually, caused somebody's death, subhanAllah. And then on the other case, when اشتبه طهور بطاهر توضأ من كل واحد منهما. If طهور is like say you have a container of tahur and you have a container of tahir, then you make wudu from both of them. Why? Because the tahir is not going to affect you like the najis, right? So therefore, you can have tahir upon your body, it's no problem. So therefore, like, you'll be certain by doing the wudu from both of them that you've made the correct wudu and you can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the salah. No, you make two times. You can either, some scholars say that you can do a complete wudu with one and then a complete wudu with the other, or some say that you do it each time. So if you do your hands with this one, you do the hands with this one, your mouth, you do the mouth with this one after the one. So either way, inshallah, fulfills the requirements. Right? وإذا اشتبهت الثياب الطاهرة بالنجس صلى في كل ثوب صلاة بعدد النجس وزاد صلاة. So in this case, and like I said, these are kind of extreme circumstances, but say for example, you had some clothing and you're sure that some of the clothing has najasa upon it, right? Say for example, you have 5 thobes, right? And you know that 3 of them have najasa upon it, right? So in this case, what should we do? Did I translate it to English or no? I did? I didn't translate it to English. Oh, sorry. Okay, khalas. So if there are both clean and unclean garments, then you should pray the number of times equal to the number of unclean garments plus 1. Right? So say we have 5 garments, like I said, 3 of them are unclean. What should we do? How many times should we pray? Or how many thobes should we pray in? 4. Yes. So 3 plus 1, then you're sure that you've done the correct salat with pure clothing, right? Clean clothing. And, like I said, it's a rare circumstance it's going to happen. But if it happens, usually it's not with that many pairs of clothing. But say it happens, then, the scholars say that you will get rewarded, inshallah. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never allows your efforts to go unanswered. So, it might be like a little bit time consuming, but not to the point where it's impossible. And also in doing that, you're getting a reward for each time you do it because you're trying to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a manner that's, pleasing to Him to get your reward, your prayers accepted. So Allah sees these efforts and He rewards you accordingly. The scholars say that you're rewarded, making the effort to try to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correctly. طيب وتغسل نجاسة الكلب والخنزير 7 إحداهن بالتراب. And you should wash the impurities from the dogs and the pigs 7 times, including 1 time with dirt or soil. So the dogs, al-kalb, in the Arabic language, there's 2 types. وَمَا عَلَّمْتُم مِنَ الْجَوَاهِ مُكَلِّبِينَ, like Allah says, in that which you taught, from the hunting animals, mukallibin. Mukallibin refers to, like, it could be the dogs that we know of. It could be like lions or tigers or panthers or falcons or what's the other bird that's trainable? Huh? Falcon, and there's another bird. Hawks. Yeah, I think hawks and falcons, you can train them, right? I'm not sure about eagles, but these animals in general, you can train them to be hunting animals. Like in the past, they would actually have, wild cats or wolves or falcons or hawks to go and hunt. But that's the ayah that's referring to. And also the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, like, Allahumma sallat alayhi kalban min kilabik. Oh Allah, like, let a beast of prey from those beasts of prey of yours go upon Ibn Abi Lahab, right, the son of Abu Lahab, Utbah. He was married to the daughter of the Prophet Ruqayya, and he divorced her obviously when she became Muslim. And he was very, like, rude and disrespectful and mean to the Prophet ﷺ. to the point, he caused so much harm to him that one time the Prophet was upset and he made dua to Allah. Oh Allah, put a kalb min kilabik, right? So this is a linguistic meaning of kalb. And it says that even though he was a mushrik, he feared the dua of the Prophet. He knew that Prophet was a truthful person and he had a relationship with Allah. So even though he was a disbeliever, he feared that dua. And then every time he traveled, he would always have guards with him and try to be protected and hide and stuff. SubhanAllah. He didn't believe in Allah or follow, submit to Islam, but he feared this dua for the Prophet. So anyways, it says that one day he was traveling in Syria with a caravan, and he would sleep in between his companions so he could be protected. And it said that a lion came and it was smelling the scent of the people, and it went in the middle and took him and ate him and killed him. SubhanAllah. The dua of the Prophet came true. So anyways, sorry I got on a tangent, but the meaning of kalb can be these types of beasts of prey that are used for hunting, or it could be dogs that we know of, and regular dogs that we see today. In this hadith, it's talking about the dog that we know of today, like the regular dogs that people have as pets, etc. Right? So he's saying if the dog, the impurities of the dog or the pig should be washed 7 times, one with soil or dirt, right? The dirt, yes. So the dirt is, some scholars say that it kills certain bacteria, subhanAllah. And others say that it's a substitute for soap or something like that, or something to remove impurities. Allahu A'lam, but the hadith mentions dirt specifically, even though they had some type of soap back then, but the Prophet mentioned dirt for some reason, and it says that it kills certain bacteria that a dog carries in its mouth, subhanAllah. And Allah knows best. No, so the Malikis, they say that the dog is not impure, and that it's just, we're commanded to wash if the dog licks in a bowl, right, or drinks from a bowl, something like that, then you should wash that bowl or that container with this hadith 7 times, one time with dirt. And they say it's just something that is called ta'abbudi, which is something that's a form of worship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And their argument is that, why? Because Allah allowed us to hunt with the dogs, right? And when the dog catches its prey, there's no hadith saying that we have to wash that area where the dog hunted. Also, there is known a hadith that dogs used to roam through the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, and there's no, nothing about it being washed and stuff like that after they've roamed through. And there's other proofs that they have as well. It's a very strong opinion, to be honest. And we're doing the Hanbali right now, but I think even Taymiyyah might go along with this argument as well, if I'm not mistaken. He's from the Hanabila, but it's a strong argument. The Jumhur, to be honest, the Malikiyya, the Shafi'iyya, the Hanafiyya, and the Hanabila say no. The Prophet said that طهور إناء أحدكم إذا ولغ فيه الكلب أن يغسل سبع إحداهن بالتراب. The Prophet said that purifying a container in which the dog has, licked or drinking from, is to wash it 7 times, one of the times with turab. So the word tahur means to be purified. So the scholars say then that means that it was najis, right? That's the other madhab. And then it goes back and forth. So anyways, Imam here says if it's a dog touching anything, then it should be washed 7 times, one time with the dirt or the soil. And if it's a pig as well. But there is no real evidence that the pig has the same ruling as the dog, right? About the 7 times. So most of the scholars, even from the Hanabila, specify the 7 with the saliva of the dogs. And then the pigs, they consider najis as well, but it just should be 1 time or enough times to remove the najasa. ويجزي في سائر النجاسات 3 منقيات. And for all other impurities, it's sufficient to do it 3 times. Most scholars say that 3 times is the bare minimum to remove an impurity. It doesn't mean that's enough. Sometimes, basically, حتى تزول عين النجاسة. You have to wash something until the physical impurity is removed, right? The trace of it is removed as much as possible, until the scholars say that you have some najasa, impurity upon clothing, for example, right? So you wash it until the water is clear afterwards, even though the garment might have some stain on it. But once the water is clear after, there's no dirt mixing with that water anymore, then it becomes pure for use, right? So you've removed the impurity. The stain can be there, but sometimes it's possible to get stains out. But as long as the water, when you're running over it, doesn't have any substance connected to it that's dirty anymore, it becomes purified for use. No. Not if you're following that particular opinion, you believe that opinion to be correct. I mean, how much longer is it going to take? Even the Maliki opinion, they say you still have to wash it 7 times, 1 time with dirt. Yeah. But they just say that it's not impure. They say that's Allah commanded it that way. That's it. We just wash it as Allah told us to say it. But they don't think it's impure. Even the Maliki say you have to do it 7 times. Yeah. 1 time with dirt. So no, even if you try to change methods, you still have to. Because the Jumhur say that it's impure, and the Maliki say that the dog is not impure. The washing is still the same, yes. Of the pots. That's fine, inshallah. Well, I mean, in a washing machine, you're probably washing it more than 7 times, so it's okay. And you are not going to put a pot in the washing machine. So this is usually referring to the containers. There's a difference if the dog licks upon your garments, and this is the case where you would see the difference between the Maliki and the others. So the Maliki would say it's specifically for the ina, for containers. Oh, the garments. Yeah. So the Maliki would say that you don't have to wash it if it's on your garments. Yeah. Yeah, no, but you can't just switch up. If you believe it's najas, then you have to stick to that opinion, right? If you believe it's not najas, then you can follow the other opinion. And I think so. Allahu a'lam. I have a little bias though, and the sister does too, mashallah. Yeah, and also the issue, some people would say that you can substitute, some type of cleaning agent instead of the turab, instead of the dust, like soap or something like that. And then وإذا كانت النجاسة على الأرض فصب واحدة تذهب بعينها لقول صلى الله عليه وسلم سبوا على بول الأعراب ذنوبا من الماء. He says that if it's an impurity upon the ground, then pouring water over it will remove it, according to the Prophet ﷺ saying that. Pour upon the urine of the Bedouin a bucket full of water. Right? As long as it gets rid of the physical, apparent impurity, like the impurity that you can see, you can just in this hadith, we know that Prophet ﷺ, he said that a man, he came from the Badia, like the outskirts, the town, and they're not very educated sometimes, on the proper etiquettes of the city people, city dwellers. So he came into the masjid and he had to use the bathroom, so he just started urinating in the bathroom. And the companions were very upset, they wanted to beat him up or throw him out, what are you doing? And the Prophet said, let him finish, let him finish. And then afterwards he explained to him, saying that this is the place that you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not meant for this act. And he was so happy that the Prophet took time to speak to him gently. And he was Allah yarhamni wa Muhammadan wa la ahadan siwana. Allah have mercy upon me and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and nobody else. He was mad at the companions because they were trying to attack him and stuff, And there's subhanAllah, Imam Shafi'i, he wrote that there's I think over 100 benefits from this hadith that you can learn from. Not disturbing somebody when they're using the bathroom, not being harsh, having patience, using wisdom, how to address a city person should address a country person, so many different benefits you can get from this hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. But he showed us basically the patience of dealing with others. And the point here that Imam is mentioning is that the Prophet ordered for a bucket of water to be poured over where he urinated at, and that was sufficient, right? So as long as the bucket gets rid of the najasa, that's fine. If the najasa is more than the bucket, you'd have to use a sufficient amount to get rid of the najasa, right? So it's a bucket of a najasa and a bucket of water. You need more than a bucket. You need 2 buckets maybe to get rid of it, right? But as long as basically the point is, if it's in the clothing, right, in general, you wash it until it's removed, at least 3 times or more. except if it's a dog, according to the Hanabila and the Shafi'iyya and the Hanafiya, you wash it 7 times, or the Hanafiya say 3 times also for everything. The Shafi'iyya and the Hanabila say 7 times, 1 time with turab. And the Malikiya say no, and clothing is not applicable, it's only with the pots and the pans and the containers. And then if it's a najasa upon the earth, a bucket full of something over it is sufficient for that. And then he goes on to the next level of najasa. ويجزي في بول الغلام الذي لم يأكل طعام النضح. And then النضح. So basically, in the urine of the male infant who has not started eating yet, meaning solid food, it's sufficient to just like wet the area that the boy peed in, the baby, basically a male baby. So like 3 requirements. It has to be urine. So obviously the feces is not included in that. It has to be from the boy, and it has to be a boy that hasn't started eating yet. He's still breastfeeding, right? In this situation, if the urine from the boy gets upon you or your clothing, sprinkling water upon it is sufficient for its purification. And this is from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because some scholars say that it's mostly like the boys that are going out in public more than the girls, but we don't know for sure like the exact wisdom behind it, but we just know that the Prophet made a permission for the baby boy. And it's a beautiful lesson for us too, like how you can recall what the parents go through in taking care of children, right? Like imagine, the father or the mother having to deal with the child using a bathroom upon them, either number 1 or number 2, or throwing up upon them, or sometimes they even hit them and stuff like that, and the parents will be laughing and joking and like being loving and so patient with the children, right? And the scholars say that, remember this, when your parents get old, some parents, subhanAllah, they get to the age where they can't control their bowel movements anymore, or they can't control their behavior sometimes, right? Look how patient they were with you for years and years and years, but then when they become old, what happens? Many people lose patience with their parents. Many people put their parents in homes or something like that, or disassociate. The parent was sacrificing his life for you, her life for you, and then people throw them away when they get old. So the scholars say, like, to look at this mercy sometimes, how the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us to be patient with the babies, but also should help us to recall when our parents reach the age how we should behave with them. No, so we said there's 3 requirements: male, boy, urine only, and he has to be before the age of eating. So once he starts eating, he's out. If it's a female, it's out. If it's feces, it's out. It has to be washed. If it's a female, it has to be washed. Is that clear? Okay. And then وكذلك المذي ويعفى عن يسيره ويسير الدم وما تولد منه من القيح والصديد ونحوه وحد اليسير هو ما لا يفحش في النفس. The same ruling for the male infant's urine applies to madhi, and a trivial amount of madhi is excused. Likewise, a trivial amount of blood and its byproducts like his pus and similar things to that. So the trivial amount. What is a trivial amount? What is a small amount? Amount that doesn't cause someone to be like grossed out, basically, or like that's like, whoa, that's too much blood, or that's too much stuff coming out. Some scholars say that's not a strong definition, and they put it to the point of like a golden dirham or dinar, something that's small amount, like a small amount, tiny amount, like a coin, it's forgiven. If it's like more than that, whatever, sprinkling the water is also it's sufficient, just like the urine of the young boy. Madhi is the what you call like the pre-ejaculate fluid, right? It comes with sexual arousal. So there's many is the sperm or the semen, right, that contains the sperm. Madhi is the like pre-ejaculate fluids, and then there's wadi. That's like a fluid that comes out, especially in the males, obviously after using like urinating or lifting heavy weights sometimes, or in extreme cold sometimes. It's like a white prostatic fluid, they say. So the many, the sperm or the semen, that's considered pure, right? That's not, you don't have to wash that. It's not an impurity, but obviously you want to remove it. And they say that's not. It's pure because one time it was on the clothing of the Prophet ﷺ, and Aisha radiallahu anha, she just like scratched it off. She never washed it off, right? So they arrived at and also they say because we are created from that. It's not befitting for a human being to be created for something impure, right? So they say that many is pure, right? And that's what comes out during sexual relations at the ejaculation, and it comes out, with like in waves basically. A lot of it. That's the many. Madhi is what it's called ejaculate or something like that, or like when it comes with arousal, sexual arousal, it's for the men and for the women, like the moisture that comes about. That's called madhi. A small, tiny amount of that is forgiven. You can just like sprinkle water. That's sufficient, right? If it's a lot, then you should wash it. Wadi, the white substance, it's like urine. It's a najasa. You have to wash it. طيب. If it's like a amount of blood that's seen, obviously you should wash the blood off. According to some scholars who say that the blood is impure. That's najis. Yeah, we'll get to that chapter later. But yeah, blood in general, according to this Imam, it's considered najis. But they say like a small amount is like it takes the level of like the child's urine, right? The baby's urine. But a large amount they would consider it to be like having to wash. And also there's a difference of opinion because some scholars they say that it's not najis because man is made from blood as well mostly, and also during the time of battles some Sahaba would be praying and their blood would be flowing and stuff like that, so it was najis. They'd have to wash it first. So I'm not getting too much in the difference of opinion because it's going to be like we'll be here for a long time. So I just mentioned some major ones sometimes, but just like we get through the text inshallah, and then if we finish the book, then we can start going to like the difference of opinions, hopefully. Like this Imam, rahimahullah ta'ala, he wrote 4 books in the subject. He started with this one, Al-Umda, the foundational one, which he only mentions one statement that he saw to be the strongest of statements. And then he went to Muqna', which is like maybe 2 opinions within the madhab. And then he went to the Kafi, which is like multiple opinions of the madhab, plus the dalil and the evidences. And then he wrote Al-Mughni, which is the difference between all of the madhabs, subhanAllah, even some madhabs that aren't even, followed anymore. So he would mention, of course, the 4 main ones of Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, and Hanbali, but he also mentioned sometimes like Zahiri, or Sufyan al-Thawri or al-Layth or something like that. It's a beautiful work. But anyways, the point is that he started off like with the basic simple text, mastering that one, and then building upon it. And this is the methodology of most of the scholars of Islam. They start with like the small knowledges first, and then they build upon that. That way you have a strong foundation. Like he calls it the foundation, al-umda, right? That literally means the foundation. And then you can build upon it, inshallah. طيب ومني الآدمي وبول ما يؤكل لحمه طاهر. And he says to end this chapter, all this is under the rulings of the waters and cleansing with the waters. He says that the semen of the humans and the urine of animals whose flesh can be eaten are considered pure, right? So, like goats, sheep, cows, camels, these, some horses, their, excrement is considered tahir. Not tahur, like don't make wudu with it, but it's tahir, meaning that it's not najasa, right? So you don't have to wash it off, or you don't have to get rid of it. Even there's a hadith, subhanAllah, with the urine of the camel was used to heal certain ailments at that time. So obviously you're not allowed to digest impurities. Right? Okay, so we have, in general, the najasa, it should be removed with 3 or more, right, in general, unless it's a dog. We said 7 in one time with the dirt, or according to the Imam, he says the pig, but most likely the pig is just the same thing, like you just remove the najas one time is sufficient, or 1 plus 3. And then we said if it's upon the earth, pouring a bucket over it is sufficient. And if it's a baby who has not reached the age of eating yet, like he's still breastfeeding, right, and he's a male or a boy, you can sufficiently sprinkle upon it. Likewise, if it's medhi, right, or if it's a small amount of blood, the same thing, you can sprinkle upon it. But if it's a decent amount, you have to wash it off. So even though we said many is not impure, the semen, and the animals that we are allowed to eat from is not impure as well. He got out of his sandal. Yeah, Jibril told him. Yeah, if you could take it off, then you can continue in the salat. Yeah, but if you can't remove it without stopping the salat, you can stop the salat, remove the impurity, then go back to the prayers, or start over on the prayers. I mean, even like there's a lot of like issues in this chapter. Like some have even discussed that if you are close to like some water and you can pour the water over and wash it, like there's a whole thing about it, as long as it's not like too many movements, or if you could just remove the garment without having to get out of salat, continue with the salat. But if it's something that you can't remove the garment, in the middle of salat, and you stop, get out of the garment, and then pray. If you discover after you finish the salat, your salat is accepted, inshallah, because you didn't know better. Yeah, you don't need to repeat it. But if you know about it in the salat, then you have to, either get rid of it or stop the salat. We'll get in that when we get to the salat, inshallah. So we finished the first chapter, which is the chapter on the rulings of the different types of waters and the removal of the certain purifications. And then next week, inshallah, we'll talk about the containers and maybe get into the next chapter after that, which is the qada al-hajat, like using the lavatory. So, any questions before we go or depart? Or good. طيب سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. Let me see. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. We should prayers in about 10 minutes, inshallah.